The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the prison camp into a swamp of cold mud and trembling shadows. The Japanese women prisoners, exhausted from marching and soaked to their bones, huddled beneath a half-broken shed that barely shielded them. Their uniforms clung to their skin, heavy, freezing, and dangerous. Water meant sickness. Sickness meant punishment. Everyone knew the rule. As they tried to warm themselves, a guard stepped forward. His boots splashed through the muddy water, echoing in the empty yard. The women froze. An order like this always came with no discussion, no hesitation allowed. "Strip out of those wet clothes," he commanded sharply. No bargaining, no choice, just obedience. The women looked at each other, not with fear, but with a silent understanding. They knew why the order existed. Wet uniforms meant hypothermia, fever, and infection. The camp couldn't afford sick prisoners. To survive, they had to respond instantly, even if the moment felt humiliating. Slowly, they began removing their drenched layers, steam rising from their bodies in the cold air. Each movement was mechanical, emotionless, practiced through months of commands that left no room for pride. They stood in the dim light, shivering, waiting for whatever came next. One of them, Hana, clenched her jaw. She refused to show weakness. She whispered to the girl beside her, "Just don't look down. Don't let them see fear." But inside, she felt the sting of cold and the weight of helplessness. This was only the beginning. The guard wasn't finished. He pointed to the line of metal barrels near the fence, barrels filled with steaming water heated over fires. "You will wash and wring your clothes, hang them. Do it quickly." The women nodded. They had survived worse, but for Hana, the moment left a mark she would remember long after the war ended. The storm didn't let up. The rain hammered the open yard like nails, each drop echoing in the prisoners' bones. Hana and the other women had just finished wringing out their soaked uniforms when a whistle tore across the camp. A guard shouted, "Everyone, hands up! Line up now!" The women froze. Moments ago, they had been tending to their clothes, trying to regain a bit of warmth. Now they were forced to stand exposed to the freezing wind, arms raised, exhausted shoulders shaking. Hana lifted her hands slowly, her fingers numb, her breath trembling in the cold. A soldier approached, a different one from before, carrying a rifle slung across his chest. He stepped through puddles that splashed against his boots, stopping directly in front of Hana as the rain dripped off the brim of his helmet. "Don't move," he ordered, pointing the rifle upward but in her direction, a warning rather than a threat. Hana swallowed hard. She didn't dare blink. Around her, the other women mirrored the same desperate stillness, some shivering, some crying silently, all waiting for what would happen next. The rainwater streamed down their arms like thin rivers. The guard paced along the line, inspecting each one. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He was searching for something. Contraband, hidden tools, anything the women might have concealed during their clothing wash. Hana felt her heart pounding. Not because she hid anything, but because inspections meant unpredictability, and unpredictability was terrifying. The guard stopped again beside her. "You," he said, "step forward." Her stomach dropped. The mud sucked at her feet as she moved, hands still raised, rain striking her face like shards of ice. She tried to keep her breath steady, though her chest tightened with every step. But then something unexpected happened. The guard lowered his rifle slightly. His tone softened. Not kind, but measured. "You're shaking too much. If you pass out, it becomes my problem. Stand still. Breathe." Hana didn't know if it was concern, annoyance, or protocol, but for the first time she realized something. Not all moments in the camp were meant to break them. Some were simply duty, cold, harsh, and indifferent. Then the guard gave one final order. "All of you, stay in formation until your clothing dries. No one moves." So they stood there, arms raised, rain falling endlessly, waiting for warmth that refused to come. And deep inside, Hana knew the worst order of the day hadn't been given yet. Minutes felt like hours. The women remained in formation, arms raised, rainwater running down their elbows and dripping from their fingers. The storm blurred the world around them, turning everything into shades of gray and trembling silhouettes. Some women swayed from exhaustion, others bit their lips to keep from crying out. Hana tried to stay steady, but her knees shook uncontrollably. She hadn't eaten since dawn. She hadn't slept properly in days. The cold gnawed at her bones. Suddenly, the guard who had inspected her earlier turned and shouted, "You, follow me, now!" Hana's heart thudded painfully. Another order, another unknown, but she obeyed. She lowered her hands slowly, waiting for permission, and when he nodded, she stepped out of line and followed him across the flooded yard. Each step made a wet, squishing sound. The mud seemed to grow deeper with every stride. They approached a large wooden barrel filled with steaming water, the same barrels the prisoners used to wash their uniforms earlier. Heat rose from it like a ghost, swirling into the freezing air. The guard stopped beside it. "Put your hands in," he commanded. Hana blinked in confusion. Was this a punishment? A test? Or something else? She hovered her fingers over the steam, unsure. Then he added quietly, "You're shaking too much. Warm them before you collapse." For a moment, Hana didn't know how to react. The order didn't sound cruel. It sounded protocol-driven, practical, maybe even humane. Slowly, she submerged her icy hands into the warm water. The shock made her gasp. Pain shot through her fingers as the blood returned, like 100 needles stabbing her skin. But the warmth spread quickly, calming her trembling muscles. The guard stood nearby, rifle lowered, watching the camp rather than her. "You pass out, and the whole unit gets in trouble," he muttered. "So don't." It wasn't kindness. It wasn't mercy. It was responsibility. But to Hana, even that felt like a small relief, one she desperately needed. Behind them, the line of women still stood in the rain, hands raised, waiting for the signal to move. Their silhouettes blurred through sheets of falling water. Hana lifted her hands out of the barrel, steam curling from her skin. "Back to formation," the guard said. She nodded, breathing steadier, and walked back toward the line, unaware that the hardest order of the day was only moments away. Hana returned to the line just as a second whistle pierced the rain. All the women stiffened. The guards began gathering near the center of the yard, speaking quickly among themselves. Something was changing. Something big. The senior guard, a man with a deep scar across his cheek, stepped forward. He didn't shout this time. He simply spoke loudly enough for every woman to hear through the storm. "Your uniforms are still wet. You will not put them back on yet." Murmur of fear swept through the line. Not anger, not rebellion, just pure, exhausted dread. Standing in the open rain without warm clothing felt like torture by itself. Their thin underlayers were soaked. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. They wanted to cry, but tears mixed with the rain and disappeared unnoticed. Hana's breathing grew tight. The scarred guard raised his hand for silence. "You will hold your position until we finish inspection of the barracks. No one enters shelter. No one moves. Those who collapse will be dragged to medical." It wasn't cruelty. It was not meant to humiliate. It was simply the rule of the camp. Wet clothing meant disease, and disease spread fast. Still, to the freezing women, it felt like a punishment delivered by nature itself. A younger guard walked down the line, adjusting his helmet as the rain dripped down his face. "You want to survive?" he said quietly to them. "Then stay standing. That's all you need to do." But for some of the prisoners, even standing had become nearly impossible. Two women near Hana swayed dangerously. One tried to steady the other, but immediately a guard barked, "No touching! Everyone holds position alone!" Hana clenched her fists, her fingers still warm from the barrel, but the rest of her body icy and weak. The rain felt sharper, colder, crueler. Hours in the storm had drained every bit of strength she had left. A sudden gust of wind slammed into the group, pulling screams from several of the women as they nearly toppled. Mud splashed over their legs. Clothes clung to their skin like frozen sheets. Then came the order that broke them. "Raise your arms again, all of you." Groans escaped the line. Hannah felt her stomach twist. Her arms were already numb. Lifting them again felt like lifting boulders, but she obeyed. Slowly, painfully, she raised her hands into the freezing rain, the same position they had held for what felt like hours. Her shoulders burned. Her muscles trembled uncontrollably. Her jaw clenched so tight she tasted blood. The guard scanned the line, making sure every pair of arms was up, and then he said, "You will stay like this until we give the signal." Hannah closed her eyes against the rain. She didn't pray. She didn't beg. She simply reminded herself, "If I fall, I won't get back up." And so she didn't fall. She stood, shaking, soaked, freezing, waiting for the signal that never seemed to come. The storm faded only when the women were too weak to notice. Hours felt like days, and the cold had carved itself into their bones. Hannah could barely feel her arms anymore. They hovered in the air only because she refused to let them fall. Then, at last, a single whistle cut through the rain. The guards lowered their rifles. The inspection was over. "Arms down," the senior guard ordered. The women dropped their hands instantly. Some cried, some collapsed. Some stood in stunned silence, unsure whether to breathe or brace for more commands. But the guard simply pointed toward the drying racks. "Your uniforms are ready. Put them on and return to barracks." It was over. Not the war, not the hardship, but this moment, this long, unbearable test of endurance. Hannah exhaled shakily. Her fingers still burned from the warm water, her shoulders ached, but she was still standing. As she walked toward her uniform, she whispered to herself, "Another day survived." And for prisoners like her, survival was the only victory they were allowed to have.